Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh!
Hell no, to the no, 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 hell to the no.
Well. After all the wait, after all the constant episodes, after all the constant build-ups and whatnot, we finally get to see Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Oh, so you thought. Come November. But what did Jake Paul do? He went to go get the greatest boxer alive. With all due respect to Mr. Platinum Mike Perry. Yes, y'all. It is the Mike Perry and Jake Paul prediction. Now, to all those out there that like Jake Paul, I'm going to tell you once again, close your ears because you're not going to like what I'm about to say. This has to be by far the most randomest unasked for fight in the history of unasked fights history in this sport. Now, I know a lot of y'all going to say, but he's a boxer. Let me tell you something. Fighting with bare knuckles and gloves is two different kind of punches. Okay? Getting hit with a bare fist is completely different from getting hit with a glove. Let's not note that Jake Paul probably about 300 pounds and Mike probably about a good 185. Y'all forgot to mention that though. But nevertheless, let me stop hating. All right, it's the official breakdown and prediction of Platinum Mike Perry and Jake the Problem Child Paul. But before I give my breakdown and my prediction, of course, I'm gonna let my bro Mario first break down Mr. Platinum Mike Perry, and then after him, I will give the official breakdown of Platinum Mike Perry.
Hey, one of the things that helps Mike Perry is the fact that he's been in bare knuckle for a decent amount of time now. You see, a lot of these MMA fighters, UFC fighters that are coming all the way from the UFC, a lot of them are so used to standing in a certain stance, fighting a certain style, and then when they go to boxing, it doesn't translate the same way because your stance in MMA is completely different from boxing because in MMA, you got a lot of other things to worry about, whether or not somebody's going to kick you, whether or not somebody's going to try to take you down. You ain't got to worry about all that in boxing, which is why when MMA fighters convert to boxing, they're a little bit their stances and the way they fight is a little bit awkward. With Platinum Mike Perry, if you've noticed him in bare knuckle, he's been doing a very good job. You know, he upsetted Michael Venom Page. He beat Luke Rockhold. He beat Eddie Alvarez. You know, Thiago Alves. He's had himself some nice success in bare knuckle. He's even a champion in bare knuckle fighting. Now, what I will say is, as far as Mike Perry's strengths, I mean, the guy is relentless. The one thing about Mike Perry is he is not going to stop coming forward. This man has constant pressure. That is his strength. He's going to keep on coming forward. He's going to keep on swinging until the final bell ends. That's what I respect about Mike Perry. He's not a guy that's going to run around the ring. He's not a guy that's going to run away from you. He's a guy that's going to run to you and is going to expect you to come out there and to counterpunch him and to beat him. And a lot of people, especially in bare knuckle fighting, I've seen a lot of them quit. I've seen a lot of them quit. I've seen it like Mike, for instance, Luke Rockhold took out his mouthpiece and basically said he had enough. Eddie Alvarez was sitting in his corner just about ready to quit, and they stopped the fights because those guys did not want to fight. So sometimes that relentlessness and that pressure is too much for some fighters to handle. And one thing about Jake Paul, which is a weakness of his, is that when guys start coming forward and when they start throwing a lot of high volume of punches and they start getting into his face, we've seen Jake Paul kind of curl up in that ball, kind of lack that defense and basically try to hold on for dear life. We saw it with the Tyron Woodley when Tyron Woodley clipped him. We saw it with Tommy Fury when Tommy Fury was coming forward. So Jake Paul has a history of that. Other strengths that Mike Perry has, he has a very, very good chin. Now, listen, he's had one boxing fight and he lost by knockout. However, since moving on to bare knuckle fighting, it seems like his chin's really holding his own. Now, Breezy did say that boxing and bare knuckle fighting, fighting with your bare hands and fighting with those 8-ounce, 10-ounce gloves is completely different. So that could also be a big factor in this fight. The weaknesses with Platinum Mike Perry. This man has little to none defense. I don't think I've seen it. Actually, I was watching the MVP highlights and I was watching the fight, and somebody in the comments said something very funny. They said Mike Perry has mastered the Rocky Balboa defense, which is come forward, get hit in the face, and continue to swing. That's what Mike Perry does. Mike Perry ain't afraid to admit it either. Mike Perry has said, I like getting hit in the face. And that is a big concern because somebody like Jake Paul said that he doesn't like getting hit, which is why he tries to learn a little bit of defense. We'll get to him in a little bit. However, with Mike Perry, defense is his weakness. He doesn't have none. He comes forward, he gets hit in the face, like he says, he enjoys getting hit in the face, and he tries to come forward and swing. Another thing with Mike Perry, his footwork isn't the best. Okay, it's kind of flat-footed, and in boxing, that could definitely be a big issue when fighting another boxer. See, the difference between bare knuckle and boxing is there's really not too big of a difference besides obviously you're fighting with no gloves. However, the difference is in boxing, you need to have footwork. And don't get me wrong, there has been flat-footed fighters throughout the years that have been very, very successful. But the difference between them and a lot of other guys who are flat-footed and haven't been successful is those guys who are flat-footed, they still have quick feet. Mike Perry, in my opinion, does not have quick feet. He's not that type of guy that in a split second with the drop of a dime can move around and cut an angle. That's not who Mike Perry is. Mike Perry is a guy who's good at coming forward. He's quick when he's coming forward, but on the other hand, he's not that quick with the back foot. He's not quick fighting when he's kind of moving back. He's not that type of guy to beat you with his footwork. He's that type of guy to beat you with his pressure. And that is a big weakness for Mike Perry. So, in my humble opinion, I feel like the way Mike Perry is going to win this fight is he has to constantly bring the pressure to Jake Paul. But at the same time, he cannot rely on his chin, and he's got a good chin, but he cannot rely on his chin to save him in this fight. Mike Perry is going to have to establish some type of defense. He's going to have to establish some types of counters. And I'll say this, he does have counterpunching, He does have a good jab. He does have good hooks, And Mike Perry is the type of guy that's going to beat you with his high volume punching. However, in this fight, if he has any chance of beating Jake Paul, he's going to have to apply the pressure and he's going to have to establish some type of defense. So Jake Paul has to think about what type of punch he's going to throw before he throws it. That is how Mike Perry is going to win this fight.
He said it all. I mean, look, and when I say, I hope y'all understand. This is nothing against Mike Perry. I have nothing against Mike Perry. This is more so against Jake Paul because he's the most strategic picker in this sport as of right now. Now, as far as Platinum Mike Perry, Mario said it best. I mean, as far as bare knuckle, the guy, when it comes to bare knuckle, you can probably consider him one of the best bare knuckle fighters today. He's doing his thing in that sport. Champion. Look at the names he didn't beat. Former UFC champions, former UFC competitors. And I like it. I like the whole competitive pressure. I'm going to suffocate you until you can't take them. That's great and that's awesome. But you're bringing it to the wrong sport. And what I mean by that, you're bringing it to the sport where the art of it is to hit and not get hit. Okay? And I get it. He likes to get hit. I'm going to be real with you. That has to be the most craziest thing I've ever heard any man say. I like to get hit. I don't think I've ever met a man or heard a man ever in my entire life like said, I like to get punched in the face. Okay? That is a different type of crazy. Jake Paul, I hope you understand. When you get in the ring with him, you're going to have to hit that man with a refrigerator, a shoe, a Timberland, maybe even a microwave. This man is crazy, okay? The man said he like getting hit in the face. This is a different type of crazy you're dealing with, Jake Paul, okay? But breakdown, like Mario said, footwork. Doesn't even really have footwork. And you can kind of gauge that because you got to remember, like Mario said, when UFC fighters get in the boxing ring, it's completely different. Boxers work on the footwork. They work on cutting off angles. They work off cutting the ring off. As in with MMA fighters, they're more like a freestyle, bouncy on their feet. There's not really too much of a cutting the octagon off. It's more so of a, jump now or don't jump type thing with them. So obviously the footwork is not going to be there with Mike Perry. As far as defense, I'll tell you this right now. Even in bare knuckle fighting, I've seen Mike Perry get countered. I've seen Mike Perry get hurt, and I'm just saying it. The pressure has gotten him a long way, but isn't it the same concept when we say with fighters who only have power in boxing, it only gets you so far till you get in the ring with somebody who knows how to take that hand away from you and box you. The same thing can work in Mike Perry's case. The pressure can work for so long before you get in the ring with somebody who A knows how to counterpunch, two have power, three have footwork. And I'm not trying to go ahead and cut corners and go ahead and do Jake Paul's breakdown, but those are three things that Jake Paul has. So his weaknesses, he has no defense, no footwork. I will say is he does have a very fast, tight pressure. When you're coming forward, expect him come at you fast. Pause. No, did he expected him to rush you with a whole lot of accumulation of punches, basically back you up and basically make you uncomfortable. Jake, be prepared for that. Like Mario said, in the Tyron Woodley fight, when he clipped you and he started putting that pressure back on you, you kind of got on the back foot. Now, I will say this too. Jake Paul does know how to handle himself sometimes on the back foot. But for the most part, when we seen Jake Paul get uncomfortable by pressure, he's like Mario also said, he tends to curl up like a cat in the ball. So, once again, his weaknesses is his lack of defense, no footwork, and I will say this: his chin has questionable moments. I'm not gonna completely say he doesn't have chin, but his chin definitely does have questionable moments. But as far as his strengths and whatnot, the guy does have power. He does bring a certain kind of pressure. That I feel like at some times and points it can make Jake Paul very uneased and uncomfortable. So, with that being said, now that we done broke down Mr. Mike Perry, now it's time to break down everybody's favorite internet sensation, Jake Paul.
Down Titanium Jake Paul, as he likes to call himself. Let's break him down. I'm gonna say this: Jake Paul's biggest strength is his growth. We can say what we want about Jake Paul. We can talk about how, we might not be the biggest fans of him and how we don't like how he's picking all these fighters and the way he's picking them. We can talk about that all we like. But the one thing that we can't take away from him is every time Jake Paul steps into that ring, he's improving on something. Okay, Jake Paul isn't the same fighter that he was when he fought Tommy Fury. I truly believe that he's a better fighter than when he fought Tommy Fury. I feel like he took that loss and he used it to kind of make himself a better fighter. Does that mean he's the perfect fighter? No. Does that mean he is a world champion? No, not right now. You don't want to see him step into the ring with Jai Opetaia. That's bad news. What I will say is this: Jake Paul, every single time he steps into that ring, he grows. Every one thing that he's always had is a counter right hook. And sometimes I feel like he's relied too much on that counter right hook. Don't get me wrong, that right hook is no joke, Breezy. It's a strong right hook. And we've seen him knock out a lot of guys with that right hook. We've seen it happen with Ben Askren. We've seen it happen with Tyron Woodley. We've seen him knock down guys with that right hook. Guys like Anderson Silva. Guys like Andre August was an uppercut, excuse me. We've seen him pressure guys like Ryan Borland with that right hook. We've seen it happen a lot. Okay, that right hook is no joke. I'm going to say that right now. He's also kind of established a little bit more of an offensive game after that Tommy Fury fight. We've seen it with Andre August and Ryan Borland. However, the one thing about Jake Paul is I can't help to notice that he still makes amateur mistakes. And for a guy who's never been an amateur, that's okay. But my point is this: eventually you're going to have to fix those amateur mistakes. For instance, some of these amateur mistakes that he makes is he'll lunge his body in when he attempts a jab to the body. When he attempts a jab to the body, he kind of leaves his head straight and open. And that's something easy where a guy, all he has to do is throw an uppercut. And I mean, Jake Paul gets hit. That's something easy where all the guy has to do is check hook him. I mean, we've seen it many, many times. We've seen it even with guys like Devin Haney, where he would throw a jab, leave his head open, and Ryan Garcia was able to beat him with the check hook. So that's something that he's going to have to improve on, okay? The last thing you want to do is end up like Earl Spence, lean forward too much when you're trying to go to the body and then get brutally beaten like Bud did to him. That's one thing. Another thing about Jake Paul is, like I said, he's too reliant on the hooks. He's not efficient under pressure. Like we talked about, when a guy is coming forward and he's applying that pressure to Jake Paul isn't always the most efficient fighter. He's not that type of guy that's throwing counters and backing those guys off. He's the type of guy that's going to let them come forward, is going to cover up and is going to try to establish his offense again after the whole pressure is done. Stamina. The other thing about Jake Paul is even though he does get late knockdowns, I can't help but notice that Jake Paul does kind of get tired towards those later rounds. I feel like he is that type of guy that even though he's gotten himself some good decisions against Nate Diaz, Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, the first fight, I do feel like he also kind of slows down a bit towards the later ends of those fights. And last but not least, he lacks combos. I do feel like he is getting better at them. I do feel like he's getting better at establishing combos, throwing more than just 2 or 3 punches in a combo. But what I've also noticed is he's also that type of fighter that throws maybe 2 or 3 punches and backs off. Jake, the one thing I will say about him, he needs to be more relentless. He needs to be more relentless. You can't just throw multiple punches when you got somebody like Ryan Borland in the corner. You need to learn how to throw not just 2 or 3 punch combinations, but 4 or 5 punch combinations as well. That's Jake Paul's problem. Sometimes I feel like he doesn't throw high enough volume in punches, and I feel like that's what cost him the Tommy Fury fight. He wasn't coming forward as much, and he wasn't throwing as many combos as he should have. But as I said, Jake Paul, every single time he steps into the ring, he looks like a better fighter, and I'll give him credit on that. So the way Jake Paul is going to win this fight is I do believe that he should be applying more pressure in this fight to somebody like Mike Perry. But I also believe that he should also understand that the way he's going to win this fight, the way he's going to knock out Mike Perry is through counter punches and through combinations. But counter punches most specifically and most importantly, again, you can easily knock out Mike Perry as long as you stick with those check hooks. When Mike Perry comes forward, if you clip him with a hook or an uppercut, do that. But don't keep on relying on that right hook. Okay, you have a left hand as well that you can knock somebody down with. You have an uppercut that you've shown against Andre August. You have other punches that you can use to beat a guy like Mike Perry. You don't have to keep relying on that right hook. So I will say in this fight, I would like to see Jake Paul beat Mike Perry through counterpunch, and I would like to see Jake Paul have more high volume punches, as well as also relying on different types of punches to win this fight.
I don't even know if I can say anything. I mean, he's saying all of it. Anywho, nevertheless, though, Jake Paul. As far as Jake Paul, his weakness is this, right? Mario touched on one of them, lunging his body out when he's throwing his jabs. But sometimes he makes the mistake of leaving his body open. And that's one of the biggest key things I tell for anybody that wants to beat Jake Paul is go for his bodies. Find them openings. He has those openings. And I've not seen one fighter pick up on it. Maybe Tyron Woodley at times, but I've never seen a fighter fully pick back up on it. He leaves that body open sometimes. Another thing about Jake Paul too is that when Jake Paul sometimes exchanges, he sometimes exchanges with an open body. So sometimes when he's stationed there, he leaves that body open, but sometimes he exchange with openings. And I've seen times where he's been in these back and forth encounters and exchanges and whatnot. And it's like if you're in there with a high level fighter, they can put their punches together and they can use one at your body and they can use one at the top. So one thing about him is that he gotta remember to keep that guard on him even when they get in exchanges to an extent, Don't be scared. Don't be scared to, to slip or pivot. Don't be scared to do any of that and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Trust your defense. Use your head movement. You're a big guy, but you can still have some kind of head movement you can use. You still got some kind of footwork. Another thing as far as like strengths and whatnot, he knows how to bounce on his feet and stick that jab out there. He has this kind of flashy, pokey jab that he kind of like sticks out at you. Another thing too is that I've been seeing by Jay Paul is that he's putting his punches together. The way he was able to stick that jab and then come up under and catch Andre August with that is another key factor too. He's trying to put his punches together. He's trying to sit down on those punches. He's trying to get in the inside more and find more strategic ways to break you down. And not only that too, but pressure you. Another one of the strengths that Mario also touched on too is his hook. What people tend to forget is that he can hurt you with a hook or he can catch you with an overhand. How many times have we seen Jake Paul sneak that overhand in? I tell fighters, if you can watch out for that hook, that overhand, and catch him in his openings, apply pressure, and take it to his body, you can beat Jake Paul. Okay? Jake Paul, like I said, he's a very powerful puncher, very pressurizing with himself also. But at times too, like I said, he leaves that body up, and sometimes he does have open exchanges. When you do open exchanges and whatnot, you set yourself up to be countered and either to the top or to the body. So in any way or format and whatnot, Jake Paul, he still has that experience edge. So that's my breakdown for Jake Paul.
To the betting odds real quick. Now, we don't have a lot of information as far as like the betting odds and as far as the rounds. This is an 8-round fight, by the way, at cruiserweight. And Jake Paul is the minus 340 favorite, while Mike Perry is the plus 250 underdog. As far as what round and everything like that, we don't have all that information right now. So unfortunately, all we can give you for betting odds is Jake Paul favorite at minus 340, Mike Perry at plus 250. So with that being said, let's go straight into the predictions, Breezy. Now look, Mike Perry, he did upset Michael Venom Page. He did upset MVP, so I mean, he has done it before. He has completed the upset before. But with that being said, how do you see this fight going? Do you see it by knockout decision? Does Mike Perry get the upset again? Or does Jake Paul continue to be the problem child for boxing?
All due respect to Mike Perry. Mike Perry beat those guys who are MMA fighters. These are not like true like stand-up boxers in the past. Like at least what you could say with Anderson Silva, like he had a boxing experience in the past. Michael Venom Page is probably one of the most lengthiest, slickest fighters you can get. Look, Rocco was at the back end of his career when it came to MMA. So I'm not trying to take the wins away from him, but they're not boxers. So obviously the striking advantage was going to be in his favor with that. But as far as Jake Paul going to catch him. Okay. Don't be surprised if Mike Perry tries that pressurizing things up into the third. See, the first 2 rounds, I think he's going to be all right. I think Jake Paul going to kind of like, figure him out, because he is a fast pressurizing fighter. I say by the 3rd round, Mike Perry going to come in with all that fast pace. Boom! Jake Paul going to catch him. Lights out. Going to catch him. And it's gonna be a quick one from Jake Paul. It ain't gonna be no situation where it's like, oh, Jake Paul. No. Jake Paul is going to catch him. It's not gonna be like the Andre August knockout. This is the only way Jake Paul is going to catch him, because the whole fight, Mike Perry is gonna be solely based on trying to make Jake Paul uncomfortable. And eventually, whether it's the 3rd, 4th, I believe the 3rd, Jake Paul will catch Mike Perry. It's gonna be a fast counter too. And we're gonna wave it off. So Jake Paul by counterpunch KO 3rd round. Call me crazy, but that's how I see it.
Far behind you. Here's what I think. I think that Mike Perry's gonna look good for the first 2 rounds. Like you said, Jake Paul's gonna figure it out. You basically got 90% of it right. The only thing I see happening is this. Jake Paul's gonna knock him down late into the 3rd round. Mike Perry's gonna survive. And then come around like early 4th round, middle 4th, I got Mike Perry getting knocked out. But I will say this. I'm going to go 4th round knockout. I know this prediction kind of seems like, y'all ever saw The Price is Right, where somebody like guesses a total of like of a certain item. They're like, oh, this item's $2,000. And somebody goes, I'm going to go $2,001. That's exactly what I'm doing to Breezy. I'm just cutting him by a round. I'm just cutting right in front of him by a round. And it's kind of cheap, I know. I'm sorry, but I truly do think that 3rd round knockdown, that's going to happen. Mike Perry's going to get back up. Come the 4th round, Jake Paul's going to end it. But I don't think it's going to be a flush, clean knockout. I think that it's either going to be one of those knockouts where Mike Perry doesn't beat the count, or it's a TKO. So I'm going to go TKO just because I do think Mike Perry is a very tough guy and it's going to come down to the ref. I'm going to go 4th round TKO. Jake Paul wins the fight. Now, with that being said, Breezy, I'll make sure that I clip our announcement episode to this fight to the prediction episode that we're going to be making. Look, I really don't like talking about Jake Paul. If Jake Paul actually decided to fight some real fighters, if he decided to fight KSI, I'm cool with that. But the reason why I don't like talking about Jake Paul is because every single time we got to hear this guy's name, it's always got to be some BS nonsense. Oh, he's fighting Mike Tyson. Whoop-de-doo, the dude's 60 years old. He's fighting Mike Perry, another MMA fighter. What's new? He doesn't help the whole stigma that's been created around him. He don't help it. He really doesn't. I'm all I'm saying is this, okay? I got no hate towards the guy. I'm not the biggest fan of him, don't get me wrong. Okay? And I never said he didn't have any skills. The dude's got skills, but he doesn't have the skills to fight the top guys in his weight class. He doesn't have those skills yet. He's still got to improve. He's still got to learn, and he has growth on his side. But all I'm saying is this, okay? Jake Paul, please take boxing seriously. And I'm in a boxing group chat with 20 other boxing fans, 20 other boxing creators, and they all say the same thing. They all talk about how we were on the conversation about like Shakur Stevenson and how fights aren't being made, or I think it was Devin Haney, one of the two, and they were talking about like how questionable like the fights were early in his career, how they were fighting guys who were like 1-4, 2-2. And I even stuck up for Jake Paul. I said, look, it's what Jake Paul is doing fighting Ryan Borland and Andre August is no different than what Devin Haney and all these other guys were doing in the beginning of their career, fighting guys who are 2-2 or 1-4. That's how it works. Your first 10 fights are going to be garbage. So when Jake Paul started taking boxing seriously and fighting guys like Ryan Borland and Andre August, I was cool with it. Regardless of what you guys thought these were, regardless of whether you guys thought these guys were trash cans, it didn't matter. It's exactly what your favorite fighters did for the first 10 fights of their career. So with that being said, I was cool with it. But then all of a sudden we get on the Mike Tyson train, and then we get on the Mike Perry train, and now all of a sudden we're right back at square one saying Jake Paul doesn't fight real boxers. Go back to fighting guys like Andre August, Ryan Borland, guys who have experience in boxing, guys who, have been boxing. Go back to fighting those guys. But here we are talking about Mike Perry. So with that being said, I think right now is the best time to conclude this episode before me or Breezy go on a massive rant, piss off more Jake Paul fanboys. Look, if you're a fan of Jake Paul, cool. I'm not going to be mad at you or anything like that. But all I'm saying is this: wake up and smell the roses and understand and realize and admit that Jake Paul is acting crazy right now. So with that being said, we gonna break it down. We gonna end this episode. Make sure y'all continue to tune in on the Puncher's Point. The reason why we keep on saying to tune in on the Puncher's Point is because we gonna keep on dropping the content that y'all gonna hear. Look, either way, whether you guys love us or hate us, y'all gonna hear something that's gonna make you react in the comments, all right? We got a bunch of comments from the last Naoya Inoue episode. A lot of them, people didn't agree. That's cool. I don't care if you agree or not, all right? The one thing about us is our stances are real. Our stances are genuine, which I believe is a thing that a lot of creators are lacking now these days. We're going to give you the truth. We're not going to always agree with what the fan favorites have to say. We're going to give you our honest truth. We're going to give you our honest opinion. And that's why y'all should be tuning into the Puncher's Point, because either way, you're going to get a banger of an episode. So with that being said, make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point.